Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which includes a 64% projected box office drop for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and that also happens to be the average of what they think it's going to be. It could actually get as low as only making $35 million this weekend, so we could see this film well north of 65% of a drop-off from its previous weekend. Things not looking all that great for the movie. However, I still want to put the caveat out there that the film needs to make $500 million worldwide to break even, according to the metrics that I use, which means that there is still a decent chance for this film to be able to make a little bit of money. Regardless of any of that, though, it does show that the MCU is in a lot of trouble, because spending an extra $70 million on this film compared to the previous movie, with the mindset of this being the setup for the next phase of the MCU, these are not the kind of numbers that you're going to be wanting to see, especially for your brand new villain, who isn't really all that scary, at least from where I'm standing in the character of Kang, at least how it's being portrayed in the movies. But we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Cocaine Bear, which is coming out this weekend. This was in my list of anticipated films for being, it could be fun. Still need to go see this film myself. I've heard some mixed things about it. Some saying that it's meeting their expectations. Some saying that it's a bit on the long side, over 2 hours. I didn't even realize it was over 2 hours. Yeah, that's too long for a movie like this. It seems like a movie that would much better suited at, maybe 90 minutes or so. We'll talk about that. We'll also give some long-range forecasting for Shazam! Fury of the Gods, because right now it's looking pretty bad. I mean, $35 million opening weekend for Shazam. Keep in mind, Ant-Man had over $100 million opening weekend, opened for 4 days of $120 million. Shazam, only 35? That's even below that of the first movie, and that's before you even adjust for inflation. Now, before we go any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, that fire button if you're watching on Odyssey, smash the rumble button as well. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with the bell notification on that way you never turn a video or live stream goes live on the channel. It has been a while. Happy and blessed Lent to everybody. Today is the Feast of St. Matthias, so I am rocking a purple and red hue right now, though I'm sure it looks pink or purplish pink or whatever it might be. Anyway, let's dive ahead into the numbers. But again, blessed Lent to everybody. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania expected to make $38.6 million in its second weekend, dropping 64%. Again, that is the average, seeing that the average right now is that it'll make somewhere between $35 and $43 million. And this, of course, is the average of that. So again, that's the range that they have put out there based on their metrics. And who knows? I mean, this film could come in underneath $35 million. This film could come right around 38.6. Compared to the first movie, this would be just about right, because it's about the same amount of money that was made in the second weekend of the last film. However, what we have seen, and even articles have started to be written about the very fact that Marvel films have this tendency always to make a lot of money opening weekend and then have massive drop-offs in the weeks that follow. The issue, of course, for Ant-Man is that it cost around $200 million, similar to many other big Marvel films, but those other big Marvel films had much larger opening weekends, and so this film has a lot less money to work with up front, but is still seeing the same, or projected to see the same kinds of drops that those other films have seen. And so what that tells us is that, one, these movies are front-loaded, but also, two, these movies don't have a lot of staying power. And I mean, this has been a part of the MCU for a long time now, so it's not just some brand new phenomena, but it is interesting nonetheless that we are starting to see these films make less and less and less on their opening weekends, still seeing the massive drop-off, showing that, yeah, they still have fans showing up on opening weekend, but that's pretty much the only time that they're showing up is the opening weekend, as this film is still projected to make #1 at the box office, beating out the new arrivals from Cocaine Bear and Jesus Revolution. I have no interest in Jesus Revolution based off the trailer that I saw. It just looks like a bot. Looks like a lot of potential blasphemy amidst it just not looking like a very good film. Cocaine Bear expected to make $13.7 million, having a wide release there, so we'll see if I'll be able to get a look at that sometime this weekend. Avatar Way of Water is also projected to still be in the top 5, making another $5.5 million. What's interesting, though, is if you look at the daily numbers for Avatar Way of Water, this film is still struggling. It's still, not making $1 million every day, and the fact that it's doing that 10 weeks out from its initial release shows itself losing a lot of steam. And again, also with the weekend still being 5.5, this actually kind of reiterates the point that I've been making for a long time, that people are only going to see this when they have time, because it is a long film. And I think that the daily numbers now kind of help to showcase that fact just a little bit more. And anyway, it is what it is there. I do think that $700 million is probably going to be, again, the highest that this film could possibly do. If it even reaches that, it is starting to lose some theaters, but still seeing some very strong holds nonetheless, and it's already made its money. Puss in Boots also seeing some very strong holds as well, having about 9 or 10 weeks out of its initial release too, still making 4.1 million, 23% drop there. Magic Mike's Last Dance dropping 54%, Knock at the Cabin 40%, etc. So big news, of course, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania continuing to hold to its crown, but at what cost? Even people over at Deadline, our friend Tony, hasn't talked about this film in a good 4 days. And if you look at these numbers right here, right, the film made $120 million in its 4-day opening, but there's been no update since that time. And what that tells me is that, their daily numbers then must not have been looking all that good. If we go ahead and look to the daily chart, $3.8 million right there. But let's see, this is from Wednesday. So this is also something where they had not previously been updating their numbers nearly as frequently as they should have been, right? So as you can see, it made $7 million on the Tuesday, made $14 million on the Monday. They were very quick, of course, to highlight that part. It's made $287.8 million worldwide at this point in time. So easily will cross $300 million. Probably will get to close to $350 million by the end of this weekend, which is why I think $500 million is definitely a very strong likelihood. The issue, of course, for this movie, though, is when you do some comparisons, because just to give you a frame of comparison, yes, this film had the largest release ever in the history of Ant-Man, but when you spend an extra $70 million and you only get a couple extra million tickets, that isn't really a very good return on investment, especially when you do some comparisons, because go ahead, look at these numbers from Ant-Man and the Wasp versus Quantumania. As you can see, yes, the first Monday, a holiday, it made $14 million, but when you compare it to the first Tuesday and the first Wednesday, Ant-Man and the Wasp, back from 2018, beat this film in its daily numbers. So that tells me that this movie has a lot less staying power than Ant-Man and the Wasp. And it also tells me that this film might have some trouble down the road, down the line, which could end up putting it in a bad scenario, because this film, Ant-Man and the Wasp, made $627 million. And based off of the numbers that we're seeing right now and the kinds of drop-offs that we're seeing and the comparisons that we're seeing, this film could maybe struggle to hit $550. So again, I think $500 million is a very strong likelihood, and I'll have official metrics on that this weekend when I do my box office breakdown once we get the official 2-week numbers. But the fact that this film is not even going to get close to that of the last film, and they spent an extra $70 million on it, not a good look. Not a good look at all. But what's also not a good look is Shazam! Fury of the Gods, expected to make only $35 million. We have also some other long-range forecasting. Creed 3 expected to only make $30 million or so in its opening weekend, which is not a very good look, expected to top out not even reaching $100 million domestically. This is a film that, when you don't have Rocky in it, you're going to lose a lot of people, and so I would not be surprised if that is indeed the case. Operation Fortune, I believe that this is the new film coming out from, I'm blanking on his name right now because it is too early in the morning. But anyway, this is a film that actually I had a genuine interest in, so excited to see that this is going to get a little bit of money. Not a really big surprise there. About $65 million. Oh, man, yeah. So this movie, with the amount of CGI in it, probably costs a lot of money. This is not a good look for what this film is expected to make. And then you've got some other films like Scream 6, which is actually projecting upwards. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, 35 to 44 million opening, expected to top out domestically at around 115 million max. Again, Warner Brothers in a very, very dangerous situation right now, where Shazam 2 could technically end up being a box office flop. Whereas John Wick 4, very excited about this movie, projected to open to $44 to $53 million, $122 to $155 million total domestically. I'll do some breakdowns of this a little bit further on, but I did want to mention these since the numbers were out on them instead of making a more dedicated video to those, because it is interesting, especially with Shazam projected to make as little as it is. But what are y'all's thoughts about these numbers? Do you think that Quantumania is going to end up being a flop? Again, it needs to make around $500 million. I know that, shout out to Valiant Renegade, I know that according to his metrics, it needs to make closer to $600 million to make its money back. In either situation, though, even if it just barely breaks even or barely makes some profit, in either case, in either scenario with either chart, it's not a good look. It is not a good look. For this to be the highest grossing opening weekend, but likely going to be the lowest grossing of the entire franchise, and we'll go ahead and, since we do have a little bit of time today, put this up against the original Ant-Man film. See, the original Ant-Man film made $564 million. So yeah, this film actually could end up being the highest opening weekend, but could also end up being the lowest grossing of all three. Now, people got to ask themselves, okay, why might that be? Is it because the MCU has kind of lost steam? Is it because, yes, you still have that hardcore fan base that will show up for anything that says MCU, which is why you're seeing these large numbers opening weekend? but it doesn't have the staying power. It is not able to get in new audiences to the same degree as the older films were able to do. Who knows? But $550 million, I would say, is a struggle right now based on the numbers that we have. We'll have a better metric on that, though, coming this Sunday. What are your thoughts about this? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, that fire button, Aussie, and smash the rumble button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Patreon, locals, and Subscribestar members who are at the Keeper the Bifrost level and above, starting off with Father Luca Illick, Garrett Searles, Chris from the 80s, who you can check out over on YouTube by the same name, Hymir Hymason, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Orange Hat Reviews, you can check out at his YouTube channel by the same name as well, Laura, the Modern Major General story, Rosetta Allen, who you can check out at her YouTube channel, Eagle Rider, and Miss Martin Muses, which goes by the same name on YouTube. Thank you all very much for supporting me over on Patreon. And also for my Subscribestar peeps, we got Matt317. Check out his Twitch channel by the same name. Fast Reaction, Mr. Roy, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man, who you can check out over at xtheboundaries.co. And a special shout out to the R. And also, lastly, to my locals members, starting off with Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan, How About a Hockey Player, J.H. Schwalbach, Brett D90, and the amazing lawyer Robert Barnes. Thank you all very much for supporting me for the month of February. You guys are all fantastic. If you want your name shouted out, access to exclusive podcasts, and exclusive giveaways, check out the top link in the video description below. Anyway, you guys are all great. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. And as always, God bless.